Hey everyone, and welcome to another Sasquatch Theory podcast. On this episode, we have Ellie from Oregon, and she had a very interesting Bigfoot encounter that took place at a campground near Crater Lake. A white Sasquatch came up to camp and sat at the picnic table and ate their food. I find these types of encounters extremely interesting because I've gotten reports like this in the past from people, and it seems like every so often a Sasquatch will come out of the woods and hang out with people at camp. I wonder why they do this, and I believe they choose certain people and they feel comfortable around them. What are your thoughts and theories regarding this type of activity, and why do they do it? Have you ever had a Bigfoot encounter? If so, contact me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com and I would love to talk to you about it. Alright guys, with all that being said, let's dive straight into Ellie's Bigfoot encounter from the state of Oregon. Alright Ellie, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
Doing okay.
Good to hear. And Ellie, if you would, tell me a little bit about yourself and your Bigfoot encounters and experiences.
I was born and raised in Oregon, born in Eastern Oregon, raised in Western Oregon, up in the mountains. And my encounter occurred in the springtime. My mother decided she wanted my kids to see Crater Lake. And go camping. So I loaded up the car with the tent and blankets and things like that. Some potato chips, marshmallows, and hot dogs. And we took off and headed towards Crater Lake. Well, when we got to the road going to Crater Lake, it was snowed in. We couldn't go up there. So we figured we'd camp out below and see what happened the next day. And where we camped was not far from Diamond Lake. And when we found our spot, it was really nice, not far to the bathrooms. The deer weren't afraid at all, which we thought was really cool. And a guy came and offered to help us set up tent and stuff. We told him no, we were okay. And he said everybody called him the damn trapper. So anyway, after he left and we got everything set up, fed the kids, I promised the kids that I would give them hot dogs in the morning and marshmallows before we left. Well, that didn't happen, but anyway, we had got the kids put to bed in the tent. Mom went to bed. We had put what we call a pecker pole into the fire. And as it burns down, you push it up in the fire. And the other end of it went right alongside the tent. So got in bed, went to sleep, woke up because the pecker pole was moving. So I pulled the flap back and looked, and there was Bigfoot right there. My face was only 2 feet from his foot. I went to look up, and I blacked out. I never black out. So later I woke up, and my mom was gone. So I started hollering for my mom. She finally answered and said she had to go to the bathroom. Well, since the bathrooms were inside of the tent, I decided I'd walk with her down there. Well, on the way there, we had little pebbles and stuff hitting our legs. And then a few more steps, all of a sudden we heard all this really loud stomping. It was so loud that we could feel it in our chest. So my mom decided we'd go back, and she peed behind a bush by the tent. So she got her in bed and we went back to sleep. Well, I woke up and there was a Bigfoot right close. So I took my kids. At that time, I'd heard they take kids. So I took my kids and I got them out and put them in the car, which was a 79 Olds Cutlass Supreme. The kids, they didn't understand, but I made them lay down in the back seat. My mom come and got in the car. Bigfoot, we seen him come in. He sat down sideways at the table. He was pure white, and we didn't know what to think. So my mom, she got really scared. She was starting to cry and pray over and over. I thought she was going to have a heart attack. And we were a couple hours from Roseburg. So we decided to just stay there. And eventually, my mom calmed down, I guess, and went to sleep. But before that, we'd been watching the Bigfoot sitting at the table eating the potato chips and the marshmallows. We couldn't figure out why he never touched the hot dogs. That was a big curiosity for me. So anyway, it was probably 4 or 5 hours later. All of a sudden, we didn't realize that he had left. I think we both blacked out. So when we got up and got the kids up and everything, they were mad because all the potato chips and all the marshmallows were gone. I said, well, Bigfoot ate them, so I guess you'll have to have hot dogs. They were not happy, but they settled down with it. And then we went walking around the park and we found the damn trapper and told him what happened. And he said it knew that it was just 2 women and children and no weapons, and it was just trying to help us. Okay, we took his word for that and went back to the campsite and got it broke down, put in the car, and we left. Well, it was a terrifying experience for my mom. And when we got her back home, we told Dad what happened and that it was pure white. My dad said, a pure white one is probably because of the snow on the ground. He figured that when they're around snow, they turn white. And then when there's no snow, they turn brown or black. Okay, Dad, that sounded logical. I put it on a website and everybody called me a liar because at that time they hadn't seen white ones. We decided not to even go to Crater Lake. We just went home. My dad had had an experience with Bigfoot when I was younger. He had decided to walk up the road to go hunting instead of taking a vehicle and scaring the deer. Well, after a while, Dad come back running. And when he got in the house, he couldn't breathe. He was out of breath. And he had blood running down his nose, scared the hell out of me. I was worried for my dad. I didn't know what had happened. Once he got his breath, he told us that he seen the Bigfoot and it followed him along the hillside. Dad was on the road. He said he thought that it was after him because he had a rifle with him. So he ran all the way home without stopping. And he said it was a big brown one. Of course, this was summertime, towards summer. And we never heard any more about it. And that's pretty much my experience.
All right, Ellie, I really appreciate you for sharing that with me. And whenever you encountered this Bigfoot, were you terrified? You said you blacked out. Do you remember anything after that?
Yeah, I remember I didn't really fear for anything but my kids because of the stories I had heard.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you. And what did this creature look like?
Oh, I would say he was probably 7.5 foot tall, pure white. His hair was fairly long. He didn't look harmful, but after the experience going to the bathroom, I was a little scared to get out and approach him. So we just stayed in the car till daybreak. And the catch was the deer, that an hour after Bigfoot left, the deer came back in. So we knew we were okay.
Okay. And what did the eyes look like?
I couldn't really tell you because when I tried to look up at him when his foot was that close to my face, I blacked out before I got that high. And in the dark, all that light at a campfire was all I had. So I couldn't really tell.
Yeah. And did the creature show up multiple times? Because you said that.
Yes.
Okay.
It showed up when it pushed the log up into the fire. And then it came back later and was sitting at the picnic table sideways because it couldn't sit straight under it, and was eating everything. So that's twice.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's interesting. So it sat at the picnic table and it was eating the potato chips and the marshmallows, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Never touched the hot dogs.
Yeah. And did it make any noise whenever it was sitting there, or was it just silent?
It was silent.
Okay. And did you get a good look at it whenever it was sitting at the table?
Kind of. My car was parked probably 30 feet away.
Okay. So you guys were sitting in the car and the creature was sitting at the table.
Yep.
Okay.
The windows kept fogging over and had to keep wiping them to see it.
Yeah. And why do you think the creature didn't touch the hot dogs? Is it because it was like processed food, like a bunch of different meats mixed together?
I'm not sure. I considered maybe the chemicals they use in it. I really have no idea why it didn't touch them.
Yeah. Okay. And whenever your mom was praying, did it have any effect on the creature? Did it seem like it helped?
No, it didn't.
Okay. Because
He just kept sitting there. He just kept sitting there eating.
Yeah. Because I hear a lot of people say if you want to get rid of these things, you have to use the power of God, and when you pray, they'll go away. But I told people, I would pray too, and these things were still out there doing what they do. And I mean, I believe prayer works with any situation, but I mean,
so do I
yeah.
usually, but I guess maybe God figured it wasn't causing any harm, so there was no point.
It sounds like it was comfortable with you guys because, like you said earlier, it was 2 females and little kids. And the scary part about that is you hear the Native Americans talk about how they're attracted to women and children, and they'll even take them.
Yes, I'd heard that. That's why I put the kids in the car.
Yeah. And your dad mentioned that these creatures could go from brown to white depending on the time of year. And ptarmigan in Alaska, they're brown in the summertime and then they turn white in the wintertime. And that could be the same with the Sasquatch. It's an excellent theory, perhaps, that they possibly turn colors. I seen an adult Sasquatch. It was jet black, but it had these white stripes going down its back, and it was in the summertime around, I think it was in June, and maybe it was starting to turn white. It's hard to say.
Yeah. I think if they're out in the snow, have a lot of snow around, they'll turn white. Like the Arctic fox and the Arctic rabbit. They turn white in the winter when there's snow.
Yeah. So it's not too far-fetched to believe that the Sasquatch can turn different colors depending on the time of year to blend into the environment.
Yes. That's my thought and my father's.
Yeah. And did the creature just sit there eating and then it just got up and left? Or did it ever look at you guys?
No, it didn't seem to look at us. It was just enjoying what it was eating. The potato chips one was barbecue and the other one was the sour cream and chives, and it didn't seem to bother it. I mean, it ate both bags full.
Yeah. And was it eating the food like a dog, or was it like eating like a human, like using its hand?
More like a human.
Yeah, that is interesting. And you guys were having pebbles thrown at you, and you could hear stomping. So loud that you could feel it in your chest?
Yes, on the way to the bathroom, which we never made it there.
Okay. And the
I
stomping.
think
Oh, go ahead.
I I had the feeling that the stomping was probably his doing. I think there were other Sasquatch there and he was protecting us from them. Because why else would they scare us away from the bathroom?
Yeah, I'm sure there was more around. And whenever you guys arrived to the area, you said that the deer were comfortable, they weren't afraid. And then whenever the Sasquatch showed up, they left.
Yeah, they left just probably 15, 20 minutes before he showed up.
Yeah, maybe they weren't afraid of you guys because they knew the Sasquatch were in the woods and they were trying to get away from them.
I have no idea. But I know in the morning they came back. They weren't afraid of people at all.
Yeah.
My kids thought that was so cool.
Yeah, that is interesting. And whenever you blacked out, do you think the creature caused this, or was it just pure fear and terror?
I think the creature caused it because I felt more curious than anything. And I'm not prone to passing out, so
Yeah. Have you ever
that's
passed out prior to this encounter, or was this the first time?
the first time.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the trapper that said maybe it's because there were women and children in the area. Did he ever mention seeing this creature or knowing anything about it?
Well, I know that he lived out in the woods most of his adult life because he had a family and bikers killed his family.
Yeah.
And he seemed to understand how the Bigfoot work. I guess he had been around him before. The way he talked, he had such confidence as to why the one was at our camp.
Yeah. I've heard people talk about Crater Lake and Bigfoot. How far away was the lake? Were you guys right on it?
No, we were at Lamola Lake, which is kind of kitty corner across from Diamond Lake.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, I'm
not
sure it's a big
not
area.
yeah, it's not far from the entrance to Crater Lake.
Yeah. And have you spoken with anyone else that's had an encounter in this area by Diamond Lake, Crater Lake?
No,
Okay. And how long ago did this encounter take place?
it's probably been 40 years ago.
Okay. And you said
But
back then
I've
no one's seen a white Sasquatch, like you were the first one to report it and people were saying that they're not white. Is that correct?
correct. They called me a liar
Yeah.
until other people started reporting white ones.
Yeah, they're out there. And I do wonder if they change colors. There's been reports here in Missouri of people seeing a white Sasquatch, especially around an area called Little Indian Creek and Union, Missouri. And I wonder if it's the same one or if each clan has like a white Sasquatch in it. Because I know with Sasquatch clans, there's like jet black ones, brown ones, and kind of a mix of every color, gray ones, white ones.
Yeah, yeah, there's all kinds of colors, I guess, because what my dad seen was brown, and it was summertime.
Yeah. How far away was your dad's experience or encounter from the area that you guys had the encounter at the picnic table?
Oh, probably 3 hours,
Yeah. And
a long ways.
yeah, yeah, that's a pretty good ways away. Have you had any other experiences after this?
I had one that you might find kind of funny.
Yeah, let's hear about it.
Um, my brothers wanted to go camping at what they called the tree farm, but they wouldn't. Nobody had let them go unless they had a chaperone. So they talked me into going with them. Um, all throughout that day, and the night before you could hear Sasquatch constantly. So 2 of my brother's friends were little boys with hair clear down almost to their butt. Their hair was real long. And as we were camping and had the fire going, I kept telling them, you know what's going to happen? I said, that Sasquatch is going to come down. He's going to take you to, and he's going to find out you're not a female. And Lord knows what will happen then. I scared them so bad that the next day they went and got their hair cut short.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably a good thing. Have you ever had any paranormal experiences prior to the Bigfoot encounter or after?
Oh gosh, before growing up at my grandmother's house, my grandparents raised me, both sets. And my one grandma's house was quite haunted. My dad said it was because of something my grandfather was into, but he wouldn't tell me what it was. And those are a completely different story. Like my aunt and uncle came to visit, and all of a sudden my aunt said, well, we've got to go. And my uncle said, well, we just got here. She said, I don't know why, but we have to go. When they went out the door, they seen the smoke billowing out of the upstairs. They called fire department. I was upstairs in my crib, and my aunt had made this cross out of popsicle sticks, had it on the wall above the crib. Well, the fire department, one guy ended up in the hospital from smoke inhalation. And they had finally got the fire out, and when they got to where my crib was, it was perfectly cool, and I was unharmed. So they told me that God must have plans for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think was going on there? Because you said they wouldn't tell you. What was your theory?
I really didn't have one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it just made me
I,
wonder, like, if they were messing with like the occult or like witchcraft or something.
I'm not sure what my grandpa was into, but we had a lot of terrible experiences. Once I was sleeping with my grandma, and my grandpa was not there at the time. And I felt these hands coming up between my legs, and I started kicking and screaming. And Grandma said, oh, you're just having a nightmare. I said, no, I'm not. And then all of a sudden, these little black things, they pulled the blankets off the bed. And about that time, we heard Grandpa come up on the porch, and they zoomed into a closet and were never seen again.
Yeah, that's frightening. From the
It
information
was.
that I've gathered, like if let's say your past family members have messed with witchcraft, the occult, or contacting spirit guides, or playing with Ouija boards or pendulums, anything that doesn't, that's not holy, can follow you, your family members, and it can be passed down through generations. So the only way to correct that is through prayer, and you just have to kind of seek prayers that ward off evil spirits. I
Well,
guess it depends on your
right.
religion, but basically you have to, you know, ask for forgiveness and
I,
kind of recall anything like any sin that you've committed or family generational sins. And it's the same thing with like genetics. Let's say if somebody's got like severe depression, they say it can be passed down through generations. It's the same way with
yeah,
this stuff.
my,
So it's all one and
my
the same.
granddaughter, my granddaughter had an evil spirit following her all the time.
Yeah.
And she would come in my bedroom and she would be fine. But if she went back to her bedroom or out in the hallway, it was there waiting for her. Terrified her. So she slept with me a lot. But now she's in Oregon, has a little boy, and seems pretty happy most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And I do believe that Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature, but also there's the unknown side to it. And there's a lot of strange claims that have come from people's experiences, and we just have to keep in mind that there's possibly more going on. So I do ask my guests if they've ever had paranormal encounters, just to gauge, why someone has had Bigfoot encounters and other people don't. And I'm not claiming that it is connected to the paranormal, but I'm just trying to find, the missing pieces of the puzzle. And it's really hard as a researcher to find evidence other than tracks, hairs, things like that, because, there does seem to be an element to these creatures, and, there's got to be a reason why tracks just disappear. People can't find bones out in the woods, and why everything's so vague.
Well, some people think the giant people they talk about that used to be here are actually the Bigfoot are offspring of them.
Yeah, I think it could be possible, or possibly the same things that created the giants created the Sasquatch and other cryptids, but it's really hard to say. I mean, we're just speculating and theorizing, but there's definitely something strange going on.
I know, studying about it afterward, I noticed that the ones on the West Coast were friendlier than those going east. The further east you went, the more aggressive they seemed.
Yeah, very well could be. It seems like there's different tribes or clans of Sasquatch, and depending on what area you're at, you could be dealing with something completely different, something with a complete different mindset. And I've heard that with like Washington State and Oregon, that there's friendly ones, and it's the same way here in Missouri. But let's say like you go to East Texas, a lot of people say that they've had horrible, horrific encounters. Same with like Alaska, and I think it just depends where you're at.
It could be. Some say it's because it's harder living back there in the East. I really don't know why. But I'm glad I met the one in Oregon and not back east. But it's like people, we have people, some are good, some are bad. And I think Bigfoot are the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
I've asked people not to kill them.
Yeah.
I don't like to see animals die, and people wanting to kill them just to cut them up or bury them or whatever is not a cool thing to me.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of these creatures have been shot in the past, and we just don't hear about it because people don't want to get in trouble, or they're traumatized by it. And yeah, I mean, that'd be a hard thing to open up about, like if you shot like a juvenile or something. It's not exactly something that you want to make public.
Yeah, I've heard stories about them being shot, and I guess the company my dad worked for, logging, the boss had come up and supposedly had one dead in the back of his truck, and had everybody look at it and said, "No, don't you dare tell anybody ever." And they took it out and buried it. I don't know how true that is. It's just a story that my dad had told us.
Yeah.
Said he never told anybody.
Yeah, if I did something like that, I would be completely, and like, I would be fearful. I would be scared just because of the experience. But like, let's say if I had a body, like it would traumatize me, trying to come out with it. Like I'd be completely scared. Like, should I do this? Should I keep it a secret? Like, what do I do? And I think that would, that would chip away at my soul, my mind, and I just wouldn't want that.
Yeah. Something you have to answer to later.
Yeah, just because like you don't know if like the rest of the clan is going to come back and kill you for killing one of them, or if you have a body, are you going to be put in prison, or are people going to call you a murderer? Like all those questions would pop up and just eat away at you.
Yes. I could never kill one.
Yeah, so people always ask, why isn't there a body? Why hasn't anyone ever shot one? And like you said, there are people, and people have claimed to do it, but maybe a majority of the people, they're too fearful to open up about it. It's a scary
Yeah.
thing. Like, what's going to happen to you? Are you going to be put in federal prison? Are people going to call you a murderer, or are these things going to come back and get you? Like, what's going to happen?
Well, I've been told the government knows about it, but they don't want to make it public because it could shut down a bunch of forests, just like the owl did. And a lot of people would lose their jobs logging.
Yeah, I believe that with the Patterson and Gimlin film. Like, there's so many people that have went to, I can't remember what it's called. I'm just going to, Bluff Creek. That's what it is. A lot of people have went there, and people think they're going to see a Bigfoot. There's all kinds of YouTube channels. They go there and camp and make a video about it. And it's just like, someone just saw one. Imagine if there was a body taken out of there and we had proof. How many people would flock the area?
Exactly. As it is, they try to flock down there anyway.
Yeah, they do, without a doubt. And what do you think these creatures are?
I'm not sure. Genetically, I could not even begin to think. I mean, they said they've had blood samples and they have human DNA, but I don't know how true that is.
Yeah, it's hard to say what that truly means because humans are classified as primates. We're animals, and we're a creature. And I guess humans are classified as a mammal. So people get mad if you call them a creature or an animal or a primate, but that's what humans are, and that's what it shows in the DNA. So it's really hard
Right.
to tell the difference between all that. Like, what does this truly mean? Because just one percentage difference can create a completely different creature.
Correct.
Yeah. Have you guys
even? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, have you guys ever returned to the area where you seen the white Sasquatch?
No. I ended up moving a long ways away.
Yeah. And do you remember if it had like a round head or a conical shaped head?
More rounded.
Okay. And what kind of effect did this have on you after the encounter?
Curiosity. But my mom, she didn't even want to talk about it after a couple of years. It terrified her so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. And, that goes to show that two people had the same encounter. One person came out curious, and the other person was terrified and never wanted to talk about it again.
Right.
Yeah. And do the kids remember seeing anything, or were they too young?
They were too young, and I made them stay laid down. Now I kind of wish I hadn't. I would have liked to have had them see it. But at the time, I was too afraid to let them be up and looking out the window.
Yeah. What do you think would have happened if you guys would have went out and approached the Sasquatch and tried to communicate with it or sit at the table with it?
I know my mom would have probably had an attack and died. I'm not sure what would happen. I'm really not.
Yeah, this isn't the first time that I've heard about a Sasquatch coming into camp and just doing what it wants. And I took a report from, I think it was Virginia, and the guy claims they were camping and the Sasquatch just hung out at their camp. And I mean, it was a pretty in-depth encounter and an experience, and it's hard to believe, but these types of encounters keep popping up.
Well, like I said, there's some good and some bad, just like people. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a researcher, I kind of hope that happens to me one day. Like a Sasquatch just walks out and hangs out at camp. I think that would be the best evidence you can get if you have a camera.
Yeah, for some reason, photos don't take very well, I guess.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I get the opportunity, and you just never know. I know they've been around here where I live at, and I'm just hoping that one
walks out and shows itself whenever I have my camera in my hand, and I don't think it'll put an end to the mystery, but it'll help out with people that have had these encounters and experiences.
Yes, it could. It could do the opposite and cause mass panic.
Yeah, I think it would. And like we discussed earlier, people will flock an area. It doesn't matter what part of the U.S. it is. And if somebody gets really good evidence or, like kills one of these creatures, people they're going to show up there. And that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what else have you had happen? You mentioned that you had paranormal experiences. Have you ever had any experiences with aliens? A lot of people have claimed to see like UFOs or have
my parents seen a UFO. The only one we seen, it crashed into the mountain, and when we went up there was nothing left of it, just burnt spots.
Yeah.
But the one my mom and dad said they seen, they were on their way to the bar in Chiller, Oregon, and there was a covered bridge to the Seventh-day Adventist Academy in Milo. And they said other people were coming from the other direction as well as them. And my dad said Mom wanted to get out of the truck and he wouldn't let her. They said it was hovering over the covered bridge, and it was so clear that they could see creatures moving in the windows. But that's all I know about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's terrifying. Whenever you had the Bigfoot encounter, could you guys smell anything? Did it stink or anything like that?
No, it didn't stink. There was no stench at all.
And did they wood knock
My
whenever you guys were there?
No, it didn't. The reason we figured it didn't stink was probably he used the snow because it seemed to be well groomed.
Yeah. And how much do you think the creature weighed?
Gosh, I have no idea. I'm not a good judge of that.
Like 300 pounds or like 800 pounds, if you had a guess?
Probably closer to 800.
Okay, so it was really big. And whenever it was stomping, did it sound like somebody was throwing like a sandbag on the ground or like a big log? Like,
no, it just definite stomping.
Okay.
It's like several were doing it at the same time.
Yeah, that is interesting. And it makes me wonder if anyone else ever had an encounter in that same area.
I don't know, but they had a fire this last summer, and so I have no idea what's left out there.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Okay. Well, I think that pretty well answers all my questions. Do you have any questions for me or anything else that you'd like to mention in the podcast?
No, but thank you for the chance to tell people.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ellie, it was a pleasure speaking with you today, and I'm glad that you decided to open up and share your encounter with everyone.
No problem.
Okay.
You have a nice day.
Yeah, you have an excellent day, and if you ever encounter anything else, feel free to reach back out to me.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Ellie, thank you very much for sharing your Bigfoot encounter with me here on Sasquatch Theory. And I find this encounter to be very interesting because you mentioned the deer just disappeared before the Bigfoot came out and started eating the food. I believe these animals, such as wildlife, can pick up on the activity, and domesticated animals can too. So if you have a dog or a cat, they're going to pick up on the activity long before you do. And it seems like this creature was out there watching you guys and observing you guys as you set up the picnic table. So yeah, the creature was hungry and it was looking for its next meal, and it didn't seem to mind your guys' presence, and it didn't care. A lot of times the Sasquatch will observe us when we're at camp, wait for us to go to sleep, and then come out when it's nighttime and rummage through our stuff. But in this case, the Sasquatch could not wait until it got dark. And I mean, it's very possible. Like I said, I got a report from Virginia in the past, and the guy was hanging out at camp during the daylight hours, and the Sasquatch came out multiple times and hung out with them all day long. It was a very detailed encounter, and if you guys want to check it out, I will tag it at the end of this video so you guys can listen to it. But yeah, Ellie had a very good point that possibly the Sasquatch will turn white during the winter, and they change colors just like foxes and rabbits and ptarmigan. So yeah, that's an excellent theory, and I appreciate everyone for tuning in today. And if you guys can, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to purchase some merchandise to help promote the channel, I would very much appreciate that. If you have a Bigfoot encounter that you would like to share with me here on the channel, please contact me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. And until the next one, you guys be safe out in the forest.